This week wrecked me. There's no metaphor here. There's no poetic detour. There's just truth. It was, without a question, the worst week I've had since becoming a full-time freelancer. And look, one of the values that I'm trying to establish here is this thing, if it's going to be anything at all, it's going to be radically honest. And not the kind of honest that you put on LinkedIn with the perfectly cropped headshot and a lesson at the end. I mean, like a real uncomfortable kitchen floor at midnight type of honesty. Because the truth is, photography isn't just a job. It's woven into the fabric of who I am. And when it starts to unravel, even just a little, it feels like I'm the one coming apart. So Tuesday evening, I was sitting in my garage, not doing a shoot, not editing a gallery, not recording a podcast, just sitting. After a full day of sending cold messages on LinkedIn and emails to past clients, hoping that anyone needed work. The kind of digital begging that makes your soul feel like it's been scraped out with a dull, rusty spoon. And I'm gonna be honest, I hit a wall. Not the kind you power through with a cup of coffee, the kind where you sit completely still and feel the silence pushing in from all sides. My garage used to kind of feel like a studio. I worked really hard to sort of make it into my little studio workspace. It was, clean, efficient, professional, but warm and inviting, but functional. Now it's just sort of like a mausoleum of momentum, of work gone past. Evidence of product shoots and portrait shoots, random props that I've purchased along the way for various projects. C-stands stacked in the corner like forgotten soldiers. And there's tables of dusty gear. Like, I'm talking like thousands and thousands of dollars worth of lenses and lights and Pelican cases just sitting there like museum artifacts of a life that made more sense like 6 months ago. And even the air in that moment felt heavy, like the whole room was sagging under the weight of this unfulfilled potential. And 20 feet away, behind a couple walls in my home that might as well have been a mile thick, my wife and daughter watching Netflix, laughing, living, just being normal. And there I was, sitting in the dark in this garage, wondering if I was quietly torching not just my future, but all of our futures, because I was too proud or too stubborn to admit that maybe this whole thing isn't working anymore. And I've never really asked that question before, at least not out loud. Never once in my entire career of shooting photography or doing graphic design or art direction have I ever asked the question, maybe this is it. Maybe this is time to move on. Maybe I can't do this anymore. And it's not because I don't love it. It's not because I'm necessarily burned out, though God knows I've been there too. Because something in the air feels different. The calls aren't coming. The budgets, when they do, are thinner. And the expectations seem to be bigger. And everybody wants more for less and faster. Everyone is stretched thin, not just photographers, but marketing departments. Everyone is being hit really hard right now. But I don't know if it's the economy the rise of AI, or just the inevitable entropy of a creative career stretching into second decade. But I do know this. The moment in the garage felt like a reckoning. Something has to give. Either I change, or the market changes, or just something breaks. My name is Patrick Fore. This is the Terrible Photographer podcast, and this is episode 15, Insider Outsider. And today I'm going to do something a little bit different. It's going to be a little more personal. It's going to be really honest. As you can see from my album art, if you looked at my album art, it's a portrait of me, which is something that I never do. I don't really like podcasts where the host has their face on the cover. It's always weird, but it felt like it made sense for this. This is a personal reflection on photography, survival, and the struggle to make meaning. Because sometimes the most important conversations, they don't happen on stages or in Zoom workshops. Sometimes they happen in the dark, surrounded by the wreckage of what you thought your life was supposed to be like. I want to start this week in a different place with a different intention, a place where I think needs to be established before we move forward with this whole terrible photographer thing. I want to tell you exactly who I am, what this whole thing is that I'm building, and why I think it matters. And please hear me, not because I have it all figured out. Hell, you can tell by the opening, I clearly don't. But maybe you have had the same kind of thoughts, the same worries about your future sitting alongside, staring at gear resting dormant like a sword from a soldier without a battle to fight. And maybe together, right now, we can figure out how to exist as photographers in 2025 without losing ourselves completely or giving up or giving in. Let me start with a confession. Actually, several confessions. Cue 2004 Usher. If you signed up for my Field Notes, the newsletter, you got pulled into an email sequence. And if you don't know what an email sequence is, it's basically just a series of automatic emails triggered by an action. And in this case, it was triggered when you signed up. And look, I will have a sales funnel. I will track open rates like a day trader watching stock tickers, refreshing dashboards at 11 p.m. And I'm already in the process of trying to sell you a book called Lessons from a Terrible Photographer. And someday I might just sell you a course or a workshop or even a retreat. I am, by definition, part of the machine that I find myself in questioning. I recognize my own hypocrisy here, but that doesn't mean that I'm comfortable with the whole thing at all. I'm actually deeply uncomfortable with how performative this all has become. The constant content creation. And Jesus, there is a lot of content creation. I didn't even know how much content creation there would be, but I spend my mornings writing newsletters and spend my afternoons designing graphics and strategizing how to turn that newsletter into Instagram carousel posts, which then I'll repurpose into a LinkedIn article about the death of authentic creativity. And the irony here, it kind of tastes like stale coffee and desperation. And there's this seemingly manufactured authenticity everywhere. The way we've turned every moment of creative struggle into a LinkedIn post about perseverance. And I know what this looks like from the outside, trust me. Another photographer with a platform or trying to build a platform, building an audience, monetizing their experience. And I know exactly what I don't want to become. Look, I'm building Terrible Photographer for people who still believe that this craft matters, but who are also tired of pretending that everything is fine when it's not. Because sitting in that garage, I was too goddamn tired to send another cold email into the void. So instead, I did what I've been doing a lot lately. I made things. I polished words. I built carousels. I designed something beautiful for Terrible Photographer and told myself that it was progress, even though it felt like more like decorating a lifeboat. And that's where most of my energy goes these days, into building something that feels meaningful while the water keeps rising. Dressing up despair in future bold, hoping that it passes for strategy, hoping that maybe someday it'll turn into something substantial. And that's what I was doing when this thread notification hit. This comment on a post I wrote about how much of photography education just feels like a con. But this reply just came out of nowhere and smacked me upside the head. User at occasional nothing said, most photographers are con men. And honestly, I don't think he's wrong. There are a lot of photographers doing some pretty shady shit to make money. Selling dreams they can't deliver, pushing gear they don't use, teaching formulas for creativity that doesn't exist. But I desperately don't want to be a part of that con. I don't want to participate in the grift that's infected this industry. See, I think there are two ways to be in this industry right now. You can be an insider, right? Fully bought into the game, playing by the rules, chasing the algorithm, selling the dream. Or you can be the outsider. You can be rejecting it all, staying pure, but probably maybe staying broke, unless you're super talented. And we all know these insiders, the ones who just don't play the game. They show others how it's done. These are the people that if they do have an insecurity or financial anxiety, you would not be able to tell. Every day, it's another post from another shoot. They live stream from conferences that they attend or teach at. Their feeds are perfectly curated and scheduled and locked down. Every post timed to catch the algorithm's morning coffee rush. Every caption crafted to sound effortlessly authentic while being anything but. Their emails are A/B tested, and they have virtual assistants whom they've never met sending out proposals that sound like their voice, if their voice was trained by a conversion optimization course. So I think the outsiders fall into two camps. The ones that have reached such a level of success, they don't even need to participate in the game, the hustle. They transcend the game. They are the ones that are doing their own thing, on their own time, on their own terms. I have no idea who they are because I don't see their work, but I respect the hell out of them. The quiet artists in the back of the room just making work, because art is still valuable, whether it's on an Instagram feed or hung in a gallery or just lives in a binder of slides sitting on some shelf. But I'm neither, or maybe I'm both. I'm an insider because I'm here in it. I'm trying to survive. I have a family in one of the most expensive cities in America. I have to pay rent with the pictures that I create, which means that I have to play the game at least well enough to stay in it. And I understand that we live in a capitalistic society. And if I have to work, and I do have to work, then I'm going to work as a photographer. Because photography, honestly, guys, is the job that I hate the least. But I'm also an outsider because I just refuse to participate in so much of what this industry has become. I don't want to become an influencer pushing gear. I don't want to turn every portrait session into content for my feed. And I won't objectify women for engagement. And I won't pretend that buying new gear will fix uninspired work. I won't sell you a formula for creativity because creativity doesn't work that way. And I have no interest in partnering with gear companies to sell you anything. I truly just don't give a shit about unboxing the latest camera while pretending it's going to change my life. Because gear rarely changes lives. Unless it's your first piece of gear, right? Unless it's your first camera. That changed my life. That 5D Mark II, like 15 years ago. Here's the thing about photography, at least for me anyway. I didn't choose it, guys. It chose me. I talked about this in a previous episode, and I truly believe it. There was never a moment when I sat down in my high school guidance counselor's office and ticked a box and chose photography as a profession. I just stumbled into it. I evolved into it, like a lot of us, I feel like, have done that. At first, I was a junior graphic designer in Dubuque, Iowa, and then I evolved that into a graphic design position, and then an art director position. And then I realized that, man, I love photography. And then I pursued photography, and then I became an in-house photographer. And now here I am, all these years later, as an independent full-time photographer. It really did change my life. And I have the battle scars to prove it. And now, 15 years after starting my career, I've watched this thing that I love get commodified in ways that kind of makes my stomach turn. You know, photography used to be about something. It was about bearing witness, about stopping time, about finding beauty or truth, or at least something interesting in the chaos. And now it's content. I just feel like it's all a little hollow. But here's the tension that I live in. I think we all live in. And I fully understand that we all have to eat. We all have to pay rent and take care of our families and contribute to society and pay taxes and take vacations and sustain ourselves. And if you wrap yourself in the title of professional photographer, you have to take the good with the bad. You have to walk this impossible tightrope between art and commodity. And I don't know how to do this perfectly. I'm still figuring it out, but I think it's worth the struggle. Which brings me to why terrible photographer exists. I'm not building this because I'm a guru who's figured it all out. Again, just refer back to the beginning of the episode. I'm building it because me needs it. Me as a photographer, as an artist, as a human being trying to make sense of this weird creative life. I created this space because deep down, I need to have this conversation. I need a place where I can talk about the real shit. The 2 a.m. existential spirals. The client who wants you to shoot like someone else. The slow erosion of confidence that comes from comparing yourself to a never-ending scroll of someone else's highlight reels. The pressure to perform your own identity like a brand campaign. Show too much and it's unprofessional. Show too little and you're not being authentic. But every now and again, here's the hope, guys. Here's the silver lining. I just feel like we need a little bit of light in this episode because it's been a little bit dark. Every now and again, there's magic. The client who trusts you. The project that pulls something out of you that you forgot was there. The shoot where everything clicks, the light, the timing, the moment when the camera becomes an extension of your eye, when you're not thinking about settings or composition, you're just seeing, and somehow the image appears exactly as you felt it should. And it's in those spaces where you feel like time is almost irrelevant. It's those shoots that started at 10 a.m. and someone has to remind you that it's 5 p.m. and that you have to wrap, that it just flew by, that you were so engrossed in what you were doing. Your soul was so connected with the work that you forgot about time, you forgot to eat, you even forgot the fact that you had to use the bathroom. That's called flow.
What is this place?
You know how when you humans are really into something and it feels like you're in another place? Feels like you're in the zone, right?
Yeah?
Well, this is the zone. It's the space between the physical and spiritual.
Wait a minute. I was here today doing my audition. This must be where musicians come when they get into a flow.
Not just musicians. Watch this.
Room, wherefore art thou? Line.
Oops. Check this out. I have been messing with this team for decades.
And the Knicks lose another one.
All right.
Flow is often described as a state of kind of effortless effort. We feel like we're propelled through the activity. Everything else just seems to disappear. Time is going to dilate, which is a fancy way of saying it's going to pass strangely. 5 hours go by in like 5 minutes. Occasionally it'll slow down. You get a freeze frame effect. I mean, anybody who's been in a car crash, for example. Intuition tends to get turned up a lot. This is a basketball player in the zone, seeing the hoop, and suddenly it's as big as a hula hoop. And our frown muscles tend to be paralyzed. And what that frowning is a sign that the brain is doing work. This is a constant issue in my marriage where my wife thinks I'm mad at her or somebody. And I'm like, no, I'm just thinking. This is just me thinking. My name is Stephen Kotler. I'm a writer and a researcher, and my latest book is The Art of Impossible. Flow itself, actually, the term is coined by Goethe, who uses the German word Rausch, which means overflowing with joy. Nietzsche actually wrote about flow. William James worked on the topic, but Mihai Csikszentmihalyi is often referred to as the godfather of flow psychology. He was very interested in sort of well-being, meaning of life, and he went around the world talking to people about the times in their lives when they felt their best and they performed their best. Everywhere he went, people said the same thing. I'm in this altered state of consciousness where every action, every decision I make seems to flow effortlessly, perfectly, seamlessly from the last. Flow actually feels flowy. More specifically, it refers to any of those moments of rapt attention and total absorption. You're so focused on the task at hand, so focused on what you're doing, everything else just seems to disappear. But one of the things that athletes talk about a lot is what they call the voice. Often when I'm skiing in flow, I will get directions, right, left, do this, do that, and it's very quick. You either do what the voice is telling you to do, or you tend to crash.
Flow is not hype. It's the place where skill meets surrender, and we actually feel alive doing the thing that we were built to do. And you can't reach that state if you're so fucking focused on chasing likes, or you're scrambling to meet rent, or you're scrolling through Instagram at midnight wondering why your portrait work doesn't look as good as the photographers down the road. That's why Terrible Photographer exists. This is my act of resistance. And if Terrible Photographer has a mission statement, which it doesn't, but if it did, it would be something like this. Resist the commodification of the craft. build a life that's profitable, sustainable, and true. Where you can turn down the client who wants you to copy someone else's style without wondering if you can pay your bills. Why? So you can stay in the flow. Because that's where the best work comes from. And more importantly, that's where the best parts of us live. Look, I want to have a different kind of conversation. One where we look inside instead of just looking at market trends. Where we talk about finding your voice, not finding your niche. Where we acknowledge that making money from your art isn't selling out. It's survival. But that survival doesn't have to mean abandoning everything that made your art worth doing in the first place. So look, I want to be totally upfront here. Yes, I'm going to try to sell you a book, but I'm not going to sell you the how or even the what. Those are easy. Aperture settings are easy. Posing guides are easy. Lighting diagrams are easy. Business templates are easy, although hard as hell to execute, but they're easy to sell. But I want to help you. No, I want to help us figure out the why. Why did you pick up the camera? What are you trying to say? What story are only you qualified to tell? Because, look, here's what I believe, truthfully, that every photograph you create has your unique, invisible signature on it. And it does not matter if it's an ad campaign or if it's a family portrait or if it's a wedding or it's a personal project. It comes from the same place. It carries your vision. It has your voice. It has your particular way of seeing the world. And that's not a small thing. That's everything. So if you are tired of the performance, if you're questioning whether this career still makes sense, if you're lying awake wondering what comes next, I just want to tell you, you are not alone. And look, I do not have the answers. I don't have a system or a formula or a 5-step plan to create a fulfillment. That's exactly the kind of thing that I'm resisting. But here's what I do have. I have questions. I have good questions about what it means to stay in the flow in a world designed to pull you out of it, to distract you. Questions about how to build a sustainable creative life without selling your soul to the algorithm or to trends or to your clients, or to your job, or to money. Questions about how we can resist the commodification of our craft while still paying our bills. Maybe even take a vacation every once in a while. I have this incredibly stubborn but optimistic belief that photography can still be more than content. That those moments in the flow, when time disappears and the work just seemingly does itself, that it's not just feel-good psychology. That's where the real shit happens. The real art happens. And that's where we remember why we picked up the camera in the first place. Or maybe I'm just naive. Maybe I'm fighting a battle that has already been lost to scroll stopping content and gear affiliate links. But maybe not. I hope not. And if not, maybe there are enough of us who still believe that the struggle is worth it. that the tightrope between art and commerce is worth walking if it means we can stay true to what drew us to this craft in the first place. That this thing that we do, this weird, difficult, gut-wrenching, but occasionally magical thing, is still worth preserving. And not just as a way to make money, but as a way to stay human in an increasingly fake and algorithmic world. If that sounds like something you need as well, if you want to find your way back to the flow, if you want to resist the commodification without going broke, then I just want to say, welcome to the resistance. This is the conversation that I want to have. This is the kind of space that I want to create. Not because I have figured it out. I'm just a dude trying to figure it out. And I think that figuring it out together sounds a lot less lonely than figuring it out in a garage, surrounded by unused gear, wondering what comes next. I just want to say thank you for being here. And thank you for believing that this might still be worth it. Stay courageous, friends. And stay curious. And yeah, stay terrible.